This woman contributes nothing. My husband shouted at his office party, his arm around his coworker. She's a useless black wife living off my success. The crowd gasped. His boss stepped forward, looked at him, and said calmly, that useless wife. She's the billionaire who signs my paycheck and yours. Before we dive into this story, if you've ever been underestimated or dismissed by someone who thought they knew your worth, hit that subscribe button. This story is about to get wild, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Vanessa, and I need to tell you about the night my entire life changed. But to understand that night, you need to understand how I got there. 3 years ago, I married Derek. He was charming, ambitious, and he told me he loved how driven I was. I owned my own investment firm, a private company that I built from the ground up after years of working in finance. I wasn't flashy about it. No social media posts, no fancy office building with my name on it. I worked from home, managed my portfolio, and made my deals quietly. That's how I liked it. That's how I protected my peace. Derek worked as a manager at a tech company called Innovate Solutions. When we met, he was impressed by my success. He'd tell his friends I was this brilliant businesswoman, and I loved that he was proud of me. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Maybe it was when he got promoted. Maybe it was when his salary jumped from $70,000 to $120,000 a year. Suddenly, he started seeing himself differently. He'd come home and talk about his workday like he was running the world. Don't get me wrong, I was proud of him. I celebrated every win. But he stopped asking about my day, stopped asking about my deals, my clients, my goals. When I tried to share something, he'd nod absently and change the subject back to himself. I told myself he was just stressed. I told myself it was a phase. Here's something I didn't tell him. I was paying 70% of our bills, our mortgage, our car payments, the insurance, most of the groceries. I covered it all. But I let him think he was the provider. I'd transfer money into our joint account and let him pay the bills from there so he could feel like the man of the house. I didn't need credit. I just wanted him to feel good about himself. Looking back, that was my first mistake. Over the past year, Derek became someone I didn't recognize. He'd make little comments, must be nice to work in your pajamas all day. Or, some of us have real jobs with real pressure. At first, I laughed it off. Then it started to sting. His friends would come over and he'd introduce me as the wife, like I didn't have a name or an identity beyond him. When they'd ask what I did, he'd wave his hand and say, "Oh, she does some investing stuff from home." Nothing major. Nothing major. The woman who turned $50,000 into a $100 million portfolio in 8 years. Nothing major. But I stayed quiet. I kept telling myself that marriage meant supporting your partner, even when they don't see you clearly. Even when they stop trying to see you at all. Then came the invitation to his company's annual gala. It was a black tie event at the Riverside Hotel. One of those fancy corporate parties where everyone tries to impress everyone else. Derek mentioned it casually one morning while scrolling through his phone. "Oh, by the way, my office party is next Saturday. You should come, I guess. You should come, I guess." Like it was a burden to bring his own wife. "Of course, I'll come," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'd love to support you." He barely looked up. "Cool. Just, dress nice. These are important people." I wanted to ask him if he realized he was talking to someone who'd sat across the table from venture capitalists and hedge fund managers who'd negotiated million-dollar deals in boardrooms across the country. But I didn't. I just nodded and said I'd find something appropriate to wear. The night of the party, I chose a sleek black dress, simple but elegant. I did my makeup carefully, wore the diamond earrings my grandmother left me. When I came downstairs, Derek glanced at me and said, "That works." Not, "You look beautiful." Not, "I'm lucky to have you," just "That works." We drove to the hotel in silence. He spent the entire ride checking his phone, typing messages, laughing at things I wasn't included in. I stared out the window and wondered when we'd become strangers. The ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, round tables with white linens, a bar that stretched across the entire back wall. People were already mingling, dressed to impress, holding champagne glasses and making small talk. Derek walked in ahead of me, immediately spotting his colleagues and heading toward them. I followed a few steps behind, feeling like an accessory he'd forgotten he brought. "Hey everyone, this is my wife," Derek said when we reached his group. "Not this is Vanessa, just my wife." Like I was a role, not a person. They smiled politely, shook my hand, and immediately went back to their conversation about quarterly projections. I tried to join in, mentioning something about market trends I'd been tracking. Derek cut me off. "Honey, this is work talk. Why don't you go check out the appetizers? They're supposed to be really good." The way he said it, the way he dismissed me like I was a child who couldn't possibly understand business. I felt my face get hot, but I smiled and excused myself. As I walked away, I heard one of his colleagues ask, "What does your wife do?" And Derek's response made my stomach drop. "She works from home. It's not really a big deal." Not really a big deal. I wanted to turn around and correct him, but I didn't. I just kept walking toward the bar, ordered a glass of wine, and tried to remind myself that I loved this man. That marriage meant patience and grace. Then I saw her, Amanda. Derek had mentioned her before, a colleague he worked with closely. She was beautiful, confident, wearing a red dress that turned heads. But what caught my attention was the way she touched Derek's arm when she talked to him. The way she leaned in close and laughed at everything he said. The way he lit up around her in a way he hadn't lit up around me in months. I watched them from across the room. Watched her whisper something in his ear. Watched him laugh and whisper back. Watched his hand rest on her lower back for just a moment too long. Something inside me cracked. I walked back over, trying to act like I hadn't seen anything. Derek barely acknowledged me. Amanda looked me up and down with this small smile, like she was sizing up competition she'd already beaten. "You must be so proud of Derek," she said, her voice sweet as poison. "He's absolutely brilliant. We couldn't do half of what we do without him." "I am proud," I said, keeping my voice steady. "He works very hard." "It must be nice, though," Amanda continued, "to not have to work, to just get to stay home and relax while your husband handles everything." Before I could respond, Derek jumped in. "She works. She just does it from home. It's more like a hobby, really. A hobby. My career was a hobby." I felt something snap inside me, but I still didn't say anything. Not yet. I just sipped my wine and smiled and pretended I didn't hear the condescension dripping from every word. Then the CEO arrived. Gerald Thompson, a man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. Everyone suddenly stood a little straighter, smiled a little brighter. Derek immediately positioned himself to be noticed, to be remembered. He was always chasing the next promotion, the next opportunity to climb higher. I hung back, watching. Gerald made his rounds, shaking hands, making small talk. Eventually, his eyes landed on me. We made eye contact and he gave me a small knowing nod. I nodded back. Of course, I knew Gerald. We'd been having monthly video calls for 2 years. He reported directly to me. A crowd gathered around Gerald and Derek pushed his way to the front, bringing Amanda with him. I stood at the edge, unnoticed and unwanted. They started talking about company growth, future projections, expansion plans. I mentioned something about diversifying their investment strategy, a suggestion I'd actually put in my last email to Gerald. Derek turned to me, irritation flashing across his face. "Vanessa, we're talking about business here. This isn't really your area." The group went quiet. Amanda smirked and something inside me started to burn. "Actually," I said calmly, "I was just babe." "Seriously," Derek interrupted. "Let the people who actually understand this stuff talk." "Okay. Why don't you go mingle with the other wives?" Other wives like we were some separate species that couldn't possibly comprehend the complexities of business. One of Derek's colleagues, trying to be polite, asked me directly, "So, what is it that you do, Vanessa?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Eric beat me to it. "She stays home mostly," he said with a dismissive wave. "Does some investing online, but nothing serious. I'm the one with the real career." My heart was pounding now. My hands were shaking, but I still didn't correct him. I wanted to see how far he would go, how low he would sink. Amanda laughed, a light tinkling sound. "Must be nice to have a husband who can support that lifestyle. Some of us have to actually work for a living." The group laughed with her, all except Gerald, who was watching with his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. Derek, emboldened by the audience and the three wises he'd already downed, decided to go further. "Let's be honest here," he said, his voice getting louder. "My wife doesn't contribute anything to our household. She sits at home all day doing God knows what while I'm out here building a career, earning a real living, making things happen." The room was starting to pay attention now. Conversations were pausing. Heads were turning. I stood frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. This was my husband, the man who'd promised to love and cherish me, the man who'd vowed to be my partner. "Derek," I said quietly, my voice barely steady. "Maybe we should talk about this privately." "No," he said, shaking his head. "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of people thinking we're some power couple. When the truth is," he paused, looking around to make sure everyone was listening. Amanda was hanging on his arm now, and he seemed to feed off the attention. "The truth is, I'm married to a useless black wife who does nothing but live off my success." The ballroom went silent, completely silent. 200 people stopped talking, stopped moving, stopped breathing. Everyone stared at Derek, then at me. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, felt my chest tightening, felt the world tilting sideways. He'd used my race as a weapon. In front of all these people, he'd reduced me to a stereotype, to something less than human, to something worthless. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't think. Then Gerald stepped forward. He walked slowly through the crowd until he was standing between Derek and me. He looked at Derek for a long moment, his expression calm, but his eyes hard as stone. "Derek," Gerald said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "I need to ask you something. Do you know who I report to?" Derek blinked, confused by the question. The board of directors, right?" "One person specifically," Gerald continued. "The majority shareholder of this company, the person who controls 65% of Innovate Solutions. The person who makes every major decision, approves every budget, signs off on every executive hire." Derek's face scrunched up in confusion. Amanda had let go of his arm and taken a step back. The crowd pressed closer, sensing something was about to happen. "I don't understand what this has to do with," Derek started. "That person," Gerald said, turning to look at me, "is your wife Vanessa, is the owner of Evergreen Capital, the private investment firm that acquired majority shares in this company 2 years ago. She's not just my boss. She's everyone's boss, including yours." I watched Derek's face change. Watched confusion turned to disbelief. Disbelief turned to horror. Horror turned to panic. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The color drained from his face. That's not possible," he stammered. "She works from home. She doesn't. She can't." Gerald pulled out his phone, pulled up an email chain, and showed it to Derek. "These are the quarterly reports I send her. These are the investment documents with her signature. This company exists because of her capital, her strategy, her decisions." The room erupted in whispers, people pulling out their phones, looking me up, finding my firm's website, finding articles about my investments. Amanda had disappeared into the crowd. Derek just stood there shaking his head. "No," he said. "No, this is a joke. This is some kind of prank." I finally found my voice. It came out stronger than I expected. Steady and cold. "It's not a joke, Derek. I own this company. I've owned it since before we got married. I just kept it private because I didn't need the attention. I didn't need people treating me differently because of my money. I wanted to be seen for who I was, not what I had. But you let me think. His voice was breaking now. I let you feel like a man. I said I let you think you were providing when the truth is I paid for almost everything. Our house, our cars, our life. I did that because I loved you. Because I wanted you to feel strong and capable and successful. I didn't need the credit. I just needed you to love me, respect me, see me. Tears were streaming down my face now. But I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. I was done. Instead, you called me useless. You used my race to demean me. You humiliated me in front of all these people because you needed to feel big by making me feel small. Derek reached for me. Baby, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known, if you had known, you would have treated me differently. I finished for him. But that's the problem, Derek. You should have treated me with respect regardless of what I had or didn't have. You should have valued me as your partner, your equal, your wife. Not because I'm rich, but because I'm a human being who deserved your love. I pulled off my wedding ring. It felt lighter than I expected. I placed it on the table beside us, right next to Derek's drink. We're done, I said simply. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. Vanessa, please. Derek begged, his voice cracking. I made a mistake. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. I said drunk words are sober thoughts. You meant every word. You just didn't think there would be consequences. I turned to Gerald. I'll be reviewing the personnel in Derek's department. I think we need to assess whether everyone there is truly a good fit for our company culture. Gerald nodded. Of course, I'll prepare those files for you. I looked around the room one last time. 200 faces staring back at me. Some shocked, some impressed, some embarrassed for Derek. I held my head high, grabbed my purse, and walked toward the exit. Derek called after me. Vanessa, please don't do this. I didn't turn around. I didn't look back. I just kept walking one foot in front of the other until I was out of that ballroom, out of that hotel, out of that chapter of my life. That was 6 months ago. The divorce was finalized last month. Derek tried everything. Apologies, flowers, letters, showing up at my house, but I was done. Some things once broken can't be fixed. I came out publicly as the CEO of Evergreen Capital. Turns out I like being visible. I like using my voice, my platform, my power to help other women, especially Black women who've been told they're not enough. I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm dating someone new. Someone who knew exactly who I was before our first date and was intimidated in the best way. Someone who celebrates my success instead of resenting it. Derek left Innovate Solutions 3 months ago. Couldn't handle the whispers, the looks, the constant reminder of what he'd lost. Last I heard, he's working at a smaller company and has moved to another city. I don't wish him harm. I just wish him away from me. The biggest lesson I learned: never make yourself smaller to make someone else comfortable. Never hide your light because someone else can't handle the brightness. And never ever let anyone use your race, your gender, or anything else about you as a reason to diminish your worth. I'm Vanessa. I'm a Black woman. I'm a billionaire. I'm powerful, and I'm done apologizing for any of it. So, that's my story. I went from being called a useless Black wife to reclaiming my power and my peace. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming disrespect and finding your strength. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. And remember, never let anyone make you feel small, especially not someone who vowed to build you up. Your worth isn't determined by who recognizes it. Now, go out there and show the world who you really are. Until next time, stay strong, stay blessed, and never apologize for being powerful.